maybe it would be interesting for people to know a little bit about what a release process is like, because there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes and not so much stuff that goes on in front of the scenes. Uh, so about this release, it started last year, I think in February already, when we had the code freeze for the previous release. Uh, and the code freeze is basically you stop adding new features or significant changes to the code, and you only focus on fixing bugs and any reverse dependency failures. Uh, and then you do so. In the meanwhile, while you have this code freeze, of course, people are submitting new pull requests, and you are working on other features that you want to go into the next release. So that is going on in a different branch while the code freeze is happening on the main branch. Then the old version gets released, and you still cannot merge all the pull requests that you have accumulated in that time, because after the old release, you have a month maybe or some time to try to weed out all the childhood diseases of a release. So we're in that process now for the next release. So we are now just waiting on what people report uh, if something is broken, and it is kind of inevitable if you have a package that is used by so many others that something becomes broken. Uh, so we usually wait a month, and if then, or at least until the issues stop trickling in, and then we do the hot fix release thereafter. And after that hot fix release is finished, then you can start on the next release.
Oh,
Uh, so that was, I would say, April last year
oh,
that it started, and that's been going on at least until April this year. And in April, uh, I was fully prepared to do a 3.6 release. Uh, I've already submitted pull requests to packages that had breaking changes to fix it with the message, yeah, we're planning the release, the 3.6 release. Uh, we think this should be adapted. Uh, but in April last year, I suddenly got the news that the S7 pull request that I was, uh, what's the word, nurturing, more or less. It wasn't quite ready to go, but I was nurturing an S7 pull request to change all the internals, and suddenly that was a go. Uh, and then the amount of packages that started failing went from a few hundred to more than 1,200. So that, of course, you cannot have 1,200 failing packages. So it took a lot of polishing on the S7 stuff to get it ready to send to CRAN. Um, as an aside, I'm not really tracking the chat, but if there is a question directed at me, please feel free to interrupt. Otherwise, please continue your banter in the chat. That's fine. Right. So suddenly S7 had to come in, which broke a lot of new packages, and we eventually managed to slim it down from 1,200 until around 300 failing packages, and then for those 300 failing packages, there's no good way other than reverting all the changes you've made to deal with that. Uh, Aside from going through them one by one, trying to categorize them into the groups of failure modes, and then trying to piece together uh, if you can send strategic pull requests to either people maintaining those packages or whether there are strategic changes you can make in ggplot2. to mitigate all these changes, mitigate all these breakages. Uh, and yeah, once you have worked through the 300 failing packages, you are left with about 200, uh, which is still a lot. But in my defense, some people write terrible tests. Um, uh, at, at least 90 of the 200 failing packages were because of a particular expectation. Uh, People might know that if you ask for the class of a ggplot object, it used to give you the ggplot2, sorry, the ggplot slash gg class. Uh, People were writing their test like expect equal class of your ggplot object, ggplot slash gg. So they're testing the exact composition of the class vector that gets returned, and which is not how you're supposed to test your classes. You're supposed to test or expect this S3 class, and then you give your object and the class it should be, which tests it with the inherits functions instead of checking if the class vector is equal. And that is a much better way to test this, but it's not how everybody is testing. So you get to. Oh, somebody asked what I consider terrible tests. Well, this is one of them. So Uh, so yeah, testing for the exact return value if you ask for the class attribute is terrible, especially because we were migrating to S7, then the class vector changed because S7 has its own way of dealing with class names. So all those tests broke. Uh, these were a lot of them. And you know, the test worked in previous versions, so you kind of feel bad that you break these tests. But on the other hand, the test is very fragile. I think is the correct term, uh, and you cannot really defensively code in ggplot2 against very fragile tests. So there's little other option than just to either send a pull request to these people or notify them of what the problem is, and then hoping that they can submit a fix around the same time that you're trying to push ggplot2 to ground. Let's see. Michael has a question. Could you talk about how you manage changes that might break other packages or avoid unwanted changes to the ggplot output of many users? Um, yeah. So it depends on what you're confronted with. So the way that we test for this is using the revdep check package. The revdep check package just goes through all your reverse dependencies once in the current state and once in the development state. It compares the R command test, R command check output from the current version versus the new version. Uh, Against a reverse dependency. And if there is any difference, if there are new breakages in the reverse dependency, it will list that. You'll get a short bit of this is the package that is broken. This is the maintainer. The test broke at this bit. Uh, and one of the I mean, the difficulty with answering Michael's questions is that there are so many ways in which packages broke. Uh, but one of the ways is via other packages, right? Via intermediates. And sometimes these intermediates can be packages like Patchwork, which is also very popular and widely used. And in that case, I was lucky that Thomas maintains Patchwork, and we can coordinate on this. And by coordinating with Patchwork, I prevented a lot of reverse dependency failures that would have otherwise arisen. Other times it's just you've been too strict in ggplot2. and you need to loosen up a certain expectation because people were using it in ways that you didn't think people should be using that. Or uh, so there's a lot of different ways to go through all of these reverse dependency failures, uh, and usually you can kind of guess from the error messages uh, if a lot of these error messages are similar to others, you can form groups and they might have similar solutions. So you will try to
Um, I I
tackle
I
this.
I I understand using RevDep check, although I can imagine with so many packages depending on ggplot, it must have taken days for that process to complete. But aside from the issues where someone else's package fails, um, I'm wondering what you were thinking, you and the other people on the ggplot development team were thinking about the kinds of changes where a graph that used to work in some way work came out looking differently or didn't work. And that's not something that I can imagine anyone can think of how to check for that, except for the other package authors to run their package down. I'm thinking of that as a simple way for me to take my package and see whether the ggplot changes have done anything that I think of as bad.
Yeah, well, if you are a package author that and your package makes ggplots, you can use visual tests, and visual tests will break if we in ggplot2 do something wrong. And sometimes also we want to make a change that will result in a change in the visual test in the downstream package. Uh, One of the examples that we had for this release is that we had these axis sticks. If you set in the theme axis line equals element blank so that you don't show the axis sticks, then it would still reserve the space for the axis sticks, even though they're not drawn. And we've now removed that little bit of space for absent uh, axis sticks, which caused all plots that didn't use the axis sticks to change. So and not reserving space for something that is not there is, in our opinion, the right way. And then people will just have to update their snapshots. There's nothing. Uh, there's nothing that we can do about that at this point. Or you can draw invisible axis sticks. It's just easier to accept your snapshots.
Yes, one question that maybe I'm hearing, and I don't know if it does represent like what Michael was asking, is like if just regular users can protect themselves because they don't have, they don't have a package with tests necessarily about like how they're interacting with ggplot2, and if it's like in the same mindset that you all have.
Yeah, you can do version control of your packages using rnv. That's it.
Okay, like so just roll back if you.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on how you are treating your packages along with your project. But if you
Yeah.
keep updating your packages as your project progresses, and
Okay.
at some point your plot output is not what you desire anymore, you just have to change it. Uh, so I want to jump on this comment from Michael that it would take days to deal with all these RefDep checks. That's not true. It was months. It takes months to deal with ggplot2 RefDep checks. Uh, but if it was about the test itself, Posit has some cloud infrastructure that allows it to run it without blocking your computer for 7 days. So that's very convenient for me. Right, so you deal with all these reverse dependencies for a few months, and eventually you submit it to CRAN. And I was not involved with that process. That was all Thomas. And somehow he managed to convince CRAN that the new version should be put up. Because we've emailed all of the, we've either emailed all of the authors that we where we found reverse dependency failures, or we sent them a pull request, or in some cases people would just archive the package. Nobody's using that. All right, to be done. You've informed them, and that's it. So you give, after you've notified everybody, you say it's 2 weeks until we plan to submit the CRAN. A little bit like how Donald Trump keeps postponing plans. It's always 2 weeks away. But yeah, it's at some point landed on CRAN, and in the time that you're waiting for RevDev checks and CRAN and stuff, you prepare a little bit of a blog post. And I think we could go over it, pick out the juicy bits, but I cannot share my screen. So maybe Gina can push some buttons.
Yes, let me see. One participant can share at a time. Am I sharing still? Oh no.
You are not sharing. We see a grid view. And Teun, if you want to click share and then click the send request button, that will send a request to Gina, who is the host, to let you share.
Okay, yeah. I'm allowing the share. Thank you.
Let's see, what am I doing this Zoom ritual, all right? You're seeing my screen now?
Yep, we can see it.
See not? Yep. So I propose we just go over the juicy bits, the things I like about the new release. And if people have other things they want to discuss, that's fine as well. So yeah, we skip over the text a little bit, and we go to the plots, because then you have something to look at instead of read. So one of my favorite features in this release is updates to theme. And themes can now have colors, let's say. I mean, there's paper and ink arguments in themes now that control how the entirety of the theme is rendered. So in this kit, normally we set the ink to black and the paper to white, and it will give you a very standard plot. If we change up these colors, you can, with just declaring a few colors, change the entire look of the theme, which I love, because you can make a very easy dark theme with this. You can set the background colors, so the paper to black and the ink to white, and they have instant dark theme, which is great. This is all controlled by this new element, which is element geom. Oh, sorry. There are some details to this element geom that are discussed here. And then the next nice thing is that you have palettes now. So the reason that we've placed all this in theme is that theme is essentially the place where you put all your non-data decisions of your plot. It is not really a data decision what the defaults are. So it is much easier to share a theme with somebody which contains the defaults for your points or whatever, than it is to hack into ggplot2's innards and that way overrule ggplot2's defaults in favor of your own. So this element geom thing does this for the layers, but also what kind of default palettes you're using is also not really a data decision. Of course, it matters what palette you use if you know the data, But if you don't know the data, then you can also set your palettes in the theme. And you can do this for virtually any aesthetic that takes a palette. I'm not quite sure if it does for discrete position aesthetics. I think not. But for any of the non-position aesthetics, you can set the palettes in the theme. And all of this is that you can is sort of for people who have their packages and they use their own theme within that package, and it's much easier to have more control over more elements of ggplot2 now. Rodo, you have a question.
Yeah, I think I tried to use a discrete color palette, and I just put 2 colors. But if then the plot requested 3, then it basically just took 2, and the last was empty. Is that right? So that it is not like when you give 2 colors, taking the intermediate colors between the 2 to get enough to satisfy all discrete levels.
Yeah, so if you supply a vector of colors to a discrete palette, it will treat it in the same way as the pal manual function from the skills package. So so if you only declare 2 but request 3, it's going to fill up these last ones with blanks. So it's better to put in a function that can handle these sort of cases more elegantly than just to declare a few functions, a few colors. Because these don't need to be vectors of colors or vectors of levels. These can be functions as well. So you have a little bit of freedom of what you want these palettes to do.
Yeah, so one could also put a palette color ramp, or how it's called, a function that, depending on the colors requested, gives them back.
For sure, absolutely.
Cool.
Right, and this doesn't do anything new. So let's skip that. There are 2 new theme settings, which are spacing and margins, which just extend spaces. This is purely from a programming point of view because all the other margins and spacings now inherit from this. So there's now a quick way to set all of them. I think I've seen Broder excited about this particular feature, which is that you can set the size of your panels. So in the first one, we set 2, 3, and 4 centimeters for these panels. But you can also set the total width. If you use separate units, you get panel by panel by panel. And if you set a single unit, that applies to all the panels in total. We also did a lot of labeling stuff, and I spoke to Sharon Pileggi at our studio, PositConf, who gave a talk last year about using annotated data and setting your human readable labels and stuff in your data. And she seemed pleased that this was now reality in ggplot2 as well. So other packages also use sometimes the label attribute. On top of my head, it's the hmisc package, the Haven package, sj label. In any case, it's kind of an informal standard for packages to have a label attribute if they want to have a human readable label for their column. So ggplot2 now just recognizes when it has such a column, and it puts the human readable labels there instead of the variable names, which is nice. Similarly, if you have a data dictionary, I don't know if anybody ever works with this, but if you do, now you can easily construct a label dictionary as well. So yeah, overall labeling improvements are just convenient, better defaults. Of course, it has always been possible to set the X label to body mass parentheses grams, but having it having happened this automatically is a little bit nicer.
I don't know. Did you answer Kara's question, Teun, before we get too far along about the element geom override parameter set earlier in the layer theme? It's a little ways up in the comments. Or in the,
I'm not sure which.
so Kara Thompson asks, does element geom overwrite parameters set earlier in a layer? So line width 3
Right.
the default, but line width 0.5 for one layer.
Yeah, so whatever you set in the theme will become the new default, and everything you put in the layers itself will override the defaults. So you can, if you put, for example, geom point color equals black, it will give black points regardless of what the default is. So yeah, you can totally override these defaults in your layers. Absolutely. Right. A few other improvements that I like as well is for discrete position scales, because it used to be that these were kind of neglected uh, compared to continuous scales. Now we've given discrete scales palettes so that you can do custom spacings between all of your categories, which might make sense if you have groups. For example, in this plot, we have an orange juice and a vitamin C group, and putting these categories together, separated by a little space, makes it more clear what belongs together. Uh, Likewise, we've given it the ability to set continuous limits so that you're not bound to using geom blank or any of these other circuitous hacks. Um, yes. So we've added minor breaks. It's just stuff that comes from continuous scales that are now also in discrete scales, regardless of whether it makes a lot of sense or not. Likewise, also secondary axes for discrete scales. They're there now. You can use them. Um, so that is new. There's a little bit of technical stuff that goes on with computing positions. It doesn't affect anything in a major way, so skim this. For panels, we have new ways of organizing. In facet wrap, we have new ways of organizing all of this. So you now have 8 different options to organize the panels instead of just 4. They're listed all here, so it's convenient. And then people who might be familiar with GT hacks might know about this add panel function that I've put in there. And I've tried to snuck it into ggplot2. And the nice thing that it allows you to do is to set a layout parameter. And this is sort of an open parameter that you can set, and it will be interpreted by facets. So if you have a custom facets like some of the extenders make, they can also have custom interpretations of what gets fed into the layout function in layers. So here we have a layout as fixed rows, and a layout as null, which is just the default behavior to just divide the data over the panels. Or here layout equals 6 is put this on the 6th panel. So this panel 6 label is only on the 6th panel, which is great for annotations that you don't want to repeat for every panel. So slightly easier annotations, always good, I think. Then we have a bunch of styling updates for box plots, a bunch of styling updates for pile-in plots, a bunch of styling updates for labels. We have gradients for ribbon geoms when they are filled or have an alpha that varies along within a group. So that's new. There's a new stat manual. Usually the extenders group are kind of familiar with what stats do because it's such a popular extension point. But considering that the audience is slightly wider today, stats are a little piece of magic within layers that do the computation, that compute like the kernel density estimates for a geom density, or that compute the 5 points for a box plot, or that do all the things that are hidden from you but work very conveniently. So there's a new one, which is stat manual. And the manual part about this stat is that you can put in your own computation function. So if you have a function that computes centroids of your data or makes a convex hull, you can have these functions, plug them into stat manual, and it will use the computation that you provide to compute the stats, which is usually hidden. So I think it also has a prototyping it's the right phrasing, a prototyping function for people who do make ggplot2 extensions, because you don't have to write the whole constructor from scratch or write a complete new stat class or sorry. For those who are not ggplot2 extenders, the way you make an extension is usual. You write a class and you write the constructor for that class. And this is all mostly very cookie cutter stuff. Like there's a very standard way of making the constructor. There's a very standard way of making the class. And particularly for stats, it's mostly the compute group function that you want to use. So there are 3 different levels. You have you can compute on the group level, on the panel level, or the layer level, and it's usually the group level that you want to extend. So if you want to quickly try out some new stat ideas, you can use this stat manual to prototype stuff, which is also nice. And there's a new connection stat which allows you to connect your data in several ways. I don't know if any of you have been to the ggpump talk, but essentially you could make a ggpump like thing if you use this particular function, which connects it in these with this reddish color. So yeah, you can have fun with that if you want. Don't need to use it. I think it's a little bit early for the Australians. Let's see if I see a few Australians here. No, I think they're still asleep. But we can now put the world in the correct orientation for our Australian friends, so they don't need to feel excluded. And there's also, of course, goodies for extension developers, which this audience have a larger share of than normal. So as I said earlier, it's a very cookie cutter thing to make a constructor for one of your classes. We've made it even more cookie cutter that you can use just this make constructor function that just does all the cookie cutting for you, which is just pure convenience. You've also put this new oxygen tag so that you can automatically document most of your aesthetics that you're using. It produces this documentation. For themes, you have now a way to compute them as ggplot2 does. And it's just some examples of doing this. So these are the talking points. I also want to quickly show something else. That if you have not tried the new thing yet, so there was the workshop that Thomas and I gave at PositConf. It's at this. I can put a link in the chat. It's there. So it has all these slides. So the session I made for this is this modern ggplot2 session. This contains like stuff from this and the last release. So if you click on the slides here, it will just go over slides of what is new and how you could use it. But there are also exercises in here. They don't work. There. Try again. You click the exercise. Oh yeah, it does work. So if you just want to try some of the new stuff, there's some exercises here that you can try. They're very simple. They're not quite challenging exercises, but it's to get your feet wet, to just get a little bit more comfortable with the new stuff. It's not just stuff from this release; it's also stuff from the 3.5 release. So there's some exercises around patterns in there as well. So if you want to try some of the new features, you can try these exercises. It's all done with this fancy whatchamacallit, these live quarto WebR chunks where you can fill in the code right here and try to run the code, and of course these errors. And there's hints and solutions and everything. So that you can try out some new stuff if you want. There's also other sessions which might be less about the new stuff. For example, Thomas has a lot of text rendering stuff in there, which his main message is text rendering is hard for Thomas, but not for you. So this stuff you can look at as well. Lastly, I also want to highlight this blog post, which is for this blog post, which just goes through all of the theme stuff, the old and the new. This is a place where we've collected a bunch of knowledge about themes, and I also saw David was here. Yes, so David makes the DGIRF package, which is great. And he has been a great sport in getting the ggplot2 release out as well. I bugged him a few times, I think, over the course of the release.
I think you're the only one that use that option for timing.
Yeah, but so for those of you who don't know, it might be for shadowing a few weeks ahead of time. But ggIRF is a great package that allows you to make interactive plots. It mirrors a lot of the ggplot2 functions, like geom_point has a geom_point interactive. Same thing for element text has an element text interactive and stuff. And you can make an interactive plot with this. And I've made this thing, which is wherever you point at, it will say which theme element it is. And if you hover over the points, it just said geom, but that is now a new theme setting as well. So basically anything you can point at is now in the theme. It will also say that you can use this this palette, the palette shape discrete, or here the palette continuous color. So everything you can point at in a plot now has a thing in in the theme as well, which wasn't quite the same before, but it is now. And I think like everything is in the theme now is, I think, a good place to summarize this release. So yes, if there are any questions, we can.
Yeah, let's do some questions. Maybe for another 10 or so minutes, then we'll be at the hour, maybe a little bit beyond, and then we
Yes.
can go offline and hang out a little bit. Looks like Andrew has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think James also asked this about the automatic label stuff, like with the attributes. If you don't want to show the attributes, like if you load a data set from Stata or SAS or something and it automatically has the attributes, but when you plot it, you want it to show like the short names, do you have to like remove those attributes with like Havens, Zap labels or whatever? Or is there like an argument in labs to say like, don't use attributes and just use the variable names?
Yeah, you can. For example, if it is the X aesthetic that has a label attribute, I don't want to use it. You can set labs X equals null, which says don't use. Oh, sorry.
Well, that would turn it off.
That will remove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, just
Right.
so instead of showing the attribute, it would just say like with displacement here, like if it came in from Stata and it had like an official label for it, but when I plot it, I want it to show the ISBL. Do I just need to remove that stuff before, or is there like a magic argument that says like don't do that?
No, there is no such magic argument.
Okay.
I mean, if that's the case, you're back in the place where you started, and you have to manually type in the titles with you.
Okay, cool.
There's no such magic. Derek, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the stat manual. In the past, I've used ggplot2 and layers to create stats and geoms. Can we have a little bit more background on how it works under the hood, and if we can access I mean, does S7 become involved here, and is it essential to how that works, or how does it work? I just want to get more details on how it works.
Yes, so S7 takes over a lot of the S3 parts of ggplot2. The ggplot2 system is something of ggplot's own imagining. It isn't used outside of ggplot2. It's a total self-contained class system, because they're based on environments, they're not really as S3 as other S3 bits. So we haven't replaced any of that with S7 because it's already a different class system. And if we really would want to port it to S7, that's going to be a major pain in the butt for everyone. Yeah, so only the S3 parts have been replaced with S7. Was there something particular about stats that you?
Yeah, so I guess that kind of answers my question. So if I understand correctly, most of it is still working with the S3 system, but some parts are S7 now. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I don't really think that you could consider the ggplot2 system as pure S3. It's its own thing, and the ggplot2 system remains, and a lot of S3 parts have been replaced with S7. So ggplot2 stays the same. Other S3 parts are S7. David.
Hi, you said everything is in the theme now. So does that mean that when you say, for example, P for geom text family equal blah blah blah, blah 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 go in the theme later?
No, there is a setting. Where did I put it? here. All right, so the element geom function has a family argument. So the way text will appear, you can also set that from within the theme.
Okay.
So
So
it's not that it goes from layers into the theme. It's just that if the layers don't specify it, then it comes from the theme.
okay, so it's all cascading now.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
I also have a question.
Sure.
With the like ink and paper here, so is there a reason like say for box plot like ink means like the fill, sorry, paper means fill.
Mm-hmm.
I think
What
I
the
just
reasoning
wanna,
behind that is?
yeah, I just wanna get my head around because like when looking at paper, like the first impression I have was like the canvas, like as in paper, but I don't think this is what the new version is trying to say. So I just want to know like what's the intuition behind having like paper as the fill of a geom.
Right. That makes sense. So I wouldn't. I'd say the paper is just background stuff rather than canvas stuff, which might make a little bit more sense. Then the ink would count as foreground elements. And you can read a box plot if it has no fill. Like if the fill of a box plot is transparent, you can still read the values of the box plot. Uh, so the fill in that case doesn't matter. So that is background in geom box plot. On the other hand, if you remove the color of the box plot, so the ink, then you cannot read the values of the box plot anymore because you don't have these whiskers, you don't have the box, you cannot read out a box plot. So in that case, ink is really the foreground and it really matters for a box plot. On the other hand, if you have something like geom area, both the fill and the color are considered foreground. And this is because of a principle that Klaus has also explained in his book, which is the principle of proportional ink, which tells you that some, not all visualizations, but some visualizations like bar plots, area plots, histograms, etc., where it means that more ink is more data at that point, or it's higher. For those kind of cases, you want the ink to be proportional to the amount of data, which is why it's called the principle of proportional ink. And so, so to get this proportionality, you would also need to make the fill the foreground. So in that case, it is ink. So it is the ink paper system is more oriented around roles than properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
And so some of those fills are color mixtures, right, between the paper and the ink.
Yeah, you can see here, for example, here there's a tomato ink and Dodger blue paper that applies to the Gym Smooth, and the ribbon is purple. It's a mixture of the ink and the paper. That's right. Derek, you have a second question?
I have another question, please. From a technical point of view, what was the main challenge you encountered in this release, and what technical challenges do you foresee for future releases?
The technical challenge for this release was most certainly dealing with S7 and the reverse dependencies. But it's also why it's a major version update. It's not 3.6, it's 4.0 because like a lot of the infrastructure that we use has changed. What was the second part of the question? Can you?
And do you foresee any future technical challenges for future releases, and what are they if you have them in mind?
So it kind of depends on what we want to put in this release, of course. But one thing that I would really like to put into the next release is that we don't no longer hard code the position aesthetics as X and Y, so that we can either have just X without Y, and that then can get mapped on the 2D plane for visualization purposes, but just one. So this would be implemented at the chord level, so you have a one-dimensional chord. But I also want to do so if you no longer have hard-coded X and Y scales and variables for the position aesthetics, you could also add a Z scale, which would in theory allow you to do 3D things. That's not the 3D thing is definitely not going to be in ggplot2 itself, because I don't want to have to figure out how to shade all these little polygons depending on where the sun is and that kind of stuff. I don't want to do that. I just want to make it possible for somebody with more technical know-how to do it. So yeah, expect just, the opposite of hard coding is loose coding. If we can loose code the X and Y positions, that would be a technical challenge. And depending how well we can pull it off, it will also become a challenge to deal with reverse dependencies that still assume that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Very cool.